I'm going to introduce our speaker tonight, and it is Rocky Chavez. Are we saying that correct?
Yeah, Rocky Chavez.
Chavez. So, let me tell you, I met Rocky a few years ago, actually, at a convention before he had become a member of the state assembly. He was at the convention trying to garner support, and I think Greg Sweat and I were down in the lobby, and we ended up talking to him and his wonderful wife, Mary, who's always very gracious to me. But I can't remember exactly what Rocky said, but it impressed us enough that we said, well, you know, we'll introduce you to some of the people we know, and we just did that on a very mild basis. Rocky doesn't need anybody really to introduce him because of the same reason why he is such a great candidate. You know, I come across a great deal of candidates, as we all do, but the ones that I tend to support and want to stand next to and behind are the ones that can say that they actually did something in their life. So the first time I heard Rocky speak, which was probably in an informal setting, he started talking about his accomplishments. And those accomplishments are, you know, most of all is he came from the ag community. He worked in the fields. He picked grapes. He picked almonds. But somewhere along the lines, he got himself went to community college, and then he went on to Chico State and got his bachelor's degree. And then sometime after that, he joined the Marines, and which is, you know, an incredibly honorable thing. I mean, that's you know, a Marine will always get a second chance with me. Not that I was ever in the military, but that is the toughest military branch. But he just wasn't in the Marines. He served overseas. He served for 28 years. He attained the rank of colonel. He became chief of staff to the 4th Marine Division. I mean, these are incredible things. But then, and again, he's going to have to clear this up because it's getting a little bit fuzzy, but what I remember is Rocky going back down to Oceanside and really getting involved with the educational community there and trying to get kids educated. I mean, that's exactly what we need in this community. But Rocky did it and got some prestigious titles and did things with it and got actual results. He sat on Oceanside City Council, which, as you know, is a much bigger community than ours and has a lot more issues. And again, when you look at all this and compare him to other candidates, you have to ask the question, well, what have the other candidates done? How did they serve? What did they accomplish? Who did they impact? Well, I'm here to tell you that Rocky has impacted this state and country in ways that other candidates can't even imagine to. So I'm very glad to have him in. I would never imagine Rocky would be here in San Bernardino County, most of all from Oceanside, but as a U.S. Senate candidate. But I'm so glad to have him here, and I hope that you will all give him a really warm round of applause and welcome here to the Hay Baler country.
Thank you very much. And since you did such a great introduction, I'll just highlight a couple of points you didn't. I'm married. I have 3 children, and I have 5 grandchildren. And I joke around with people sometimes because education is very important to me. How do you go from picking grapes, working your way through college, to have 3 children, all with college degrees? And my daughter has a master's from Central Michigan. My son has got a doctorate from UPenn Medical and is a doctor. How does that happen? You know?
Good parents.
I think it happens because in important family values. When the kids were always brought up when they were like 5 or 6 years old and their birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, little thing. And I'd always end there with, you know, let's say there was 6. And I'd say in 12 more years, you get to leave the house and get a job. You get to leave the house and join the military. Or you get to leave the house and go to college. Operative word is leaving the house. Because I think that's important that kids need to know that there is a point beyond living with mom and dad going forward. And all the kids right at 18, by just numbers, just left the house. And I think that's important. I'm very proud of my daughter graduated from Davis in 3 years and 2 quarters and paid her all the way through there. And my son did the same thing Tom did at Davis. And Sage chickened out, he joined the Coast Guard, went to the Coast Guard Academy. So, but he was a good wrestler, so he got to do that. So, if you really want to, as I always tell people, if you really want to know what somebody's done, don't look at them just running their mouth, because politicians can do that really well. Look at their family, because you cannot fake your family. Kids know who you were. They know what you did. They were there watching you do it. And so, look at my family, and that's kind of an indication of who I am and what my values are. I'm very religious. I don't shy away from that. I'm Catholic. I'm in the Knights of Columbus, a 4th degree. I was very active in my church until I went to Sacramento, because now I live in Sacramento, travel around, not nearly as much. We used to go to daily mass, and Father Mike and I would always have breakfast afterwards and talk. Because that's what's kind of nice being in the city council oversight, because the council is right next to the church. So, but that's who I am. Quickly, why am I running for U.S. Senate? I'm running for really three reasons. One is opportunity. We need to bring back the opportunity to our state that we have not had before. I was on a panel last week on the Affordable Care Act down in San Diego. And the real sad part about that is that 30% of the population of California is at poverty. And that's why they have to have money for health care. I sit on the higher ed board, I told you before. Parents can't afford to send their kids to college because of their incomes. And kids are taking huge debts because they don't have jobs. So the opportunities that were had just 20 years ago when I was coming through, they're not there anymore. So how do we talk about jobs and education and how we do that? So I'm running about opportunity. The other thing I'm running about is infrastructure. Infrastructure and water. Why do we have a failed water system? Politicians today who say we're going to do this or that actually are drinking water from the success of their grandparents. You know, Pat Brown did more for that than Jerry Brown has ever done, and we haven't done anything since. But legislators haven't done it either. Our streets are falling apart. Our roads aren't good. I was listening to a podcast. That's what I do all the time when I'm driving around. You start looking at infrastructure and our bridges and roads, we've got a real problem in the state, not in the state, in the whole country. Our ports, you know, 40% of all transport of stuff come from overseas, go through the Los Angeles ports. Our ports are falling apart. So we need to invest in infrastructure. And the third thing, the reason I'm running, safe world. You know, I came out a couple hours ago. The Russian plane that was blown up was an ISIS bomb. You know, I was listening to somebody talk the other day. I read this journal called Foreign Affairs. I've been reading it for about 30 years. The Foreign Affairs, this journal came out, has been talking about really how the United States needs to pull out of the Middle East and kind of let it go. And the comparison, one of the articles talked about was, well, when the Russians went into Afghanistan, you know, they went in as a quagmire, they suffered, they came out. Let them take Syria, it'll do the same thing, and that was kind of the argument. Well, there's a big difference between Afghanistan and Syria. Afghanistan is a mountain country, south of Russia. Pakistan is sitting there, Afghanistan. You know, top of the world, probably not really critical to the well-being of the United States. If you look at the history of the czars in Russia, one of the things they always wanted was a warm water port. That was the whole issue of going into Ukraine and right now trying to get a warm water port. By helping out Assad right now in Syria, they not only have a warm water port, they also have an airfield, which has the capability to reach into Europe. You know, those are the sorts of things when they compare those two between Afghanistan and the Middle East, I don't think holds true. Because that is a regional pivotal point, and we can't back down. This whole issue with China on the islands, you know, they're taking land. The Spratly Islands, when I was a young lieutenant in the Pacific, I remember reading in Foreign Affairs about those islands and the issue with Taiwan claiming it, China claiming it, the Philippines claiming it, Vietnamese claiming it. And now the Chinese came out and they said, we know how to solve this. They just dredged a bunch of dirt up, made a bunch of islands, and said that's our land. And now they're going to put the 12-mile radius and stop all shipping through there, which is going to cut off trade in the Pacific. This is a big deal, people. It's huge. It's a big deal. So you need to have somebody who goes to the Senate who actually understands foreign affairs and international relations and the fear that we could have when we have to use the military. There was an article written about me today in Cal, whatever the heck magazine, what is that?
Cal Watchdog.
Cal Watchdog. And the guy was saying in 2003, when the United States decided to go into Iraq on the ideas of weapons of mass destruction, I shared with him a story my son asked me, because my son at that time was in the Navy. I'd been out of the Marine Corps for 2 years by then. And he said, Dad, what do you think? We're going to go in. I said, bad mistake. You don't want to go in. I said, if we go into Iraq, if we do it right, your son will be going to Iraq. It'll be that much of a commitment by the United States. Should not go there. There's a general named General Zinni, he's a Marine Corps 4-star. A lot of guys loved him in the 80s and 90s. Real war hero out of Vietnam, big hero in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. He wrote a big book about it. General Zinni was really good because he resigned from the Marine Corps, went out and wrote the book, Why We Shouldn't Be Doing This. And he's kind of got pushed to the side because in 2003, everybody was, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And he was kind of cast aside. Now people are resurrecting him saying, you know what, he was right. So we're dealing with some serious things at a very important level for this U.S. Senate race. It's about opportunity and how we can bring our country back and our jobs for kids. It's about the whole issue of how does government work efficiently to provide infrastructure, do the things they should do, and also have an eye to foreign affairs and understand it's important that we take care of our partners like Israel and stand by them. Because in a bad situation, you want to make sure you have some good friends with you to always be with you, like the UK and Israel, who never push them aside. They're our partners. So that's kind of why I'm running for Senate, but I thought what I would do best is open it up to you, and you guys can ask me any question you want, and I'd be happy to answer it. Some of you guys already quoted me on Second Amendment, but anything you want to ask me, just go ahead and do it. Yes, sir.
I heard you talk about opportunity. I think it's the right, I think the 3 points are absolutely on target. What can an individual, I should say a member of Congress do, assuming you had a friendly executive branch, what is the one law or the one bill that you could do that would actually bring opportunity?
That's a great question. I will, and I'm going to tie it in this way. It's going to be an infrastructure, but if the Republicans do not take the presidential, we don't take the White House, shame on us. There is no reason we shouldn't get in there. This past 7 years has been a travesty. The Affordable Care Act put a huge debt into us. I recognize we had to take care of people in health care. We especially had to take care of people that had catastrophic things hit in their family. There's a lot of ways to do it without doing that. The agenda of Obama in foreign affairs just leading from behind, where he gets involved on actually dividing the country, picking winners and losers. You know, when Hillary says, you know, I know who my enemies are, the Republicans, that sort of mentality, if we don't win this as Republicans, wow. We got a lot of good people up there. I hope we go through the process. You know, you got Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. I'm hopeful we're going to get somebody who has a more positive message and understand the strength of this country. I know this in California, and I'm going around the states. A lot of people say, well, Rocky, you're very, you don't. Some people want you to start screaming and yelling. And I say, you know what? When I was the Undersecretary of Veteran Affairs traveling around the state, there's something I noticed. You go anywhere, that little monument you have out of here with the names of the men who died, that's everywhere. It's in Fresno, it's in Bakersfield, it's in Redding, it's in Los Angeles, it's in Riverside, it's in Orange County, it's in San Diego. Californians are good people. They're very, care about their country, they care about defense, they care about their neighbors, and they do care about the environment. That's why we're here, we like the environment. You know, if we didn't like this, we'd be in Minnesota. So the people care about the weather and the environment. So you gotta have a positive message. So we gotta win that. So I think we will win the White House. As a US Senator, what I'm gonna be able to do is, obviously we'll have them be in the majority, which is not nicer than I'm in currently in California Assembly, where they don't even talk to us. You can push through things. I would push through water. Water would bring back agriculture, but I really get upset when I hear people saying, well, you know, we're building almonds and there's so many gallons of water and it's going to China for rich people and the thing. Are you kidding me? I mean, every product that we produce, first of all, we're free majority of the world. Every product that we produce, it's not just the farmer who's investing and putting it in, the technology that goes around it, by the way, the technology in the farms is way beyond when I was in a farm. It's amazing when I go out and visit them, all the capability to measure temperature and water and figure out the right amount of moisture you need to add. The logistics to move it and move it out, the packing plants, the shippers, all the jobs that come from agriculture and the goodness it brings. I push water. On the side issue, what I would also push is education. Education needs to be cited at the local level. You don't, as I always say all the time in the Assembly office, when I'm on the Education Committee, we are not the font of knowledge. The education for a child in Hollister should be different than an education in my district in Carlsbad. And you should have the right to decide what you want to do with your kids in your schools. There should be standards so that we're sure everybody's educated, but what that education entails, when I ran my school, I was a charter school guy for 7 years. When I ran my school, our little motto was guiding students as they find their role within society. There's wealth in every design of a child. Let them do what they want to do. Some kids want to do music, fine. Some kids want to be a scientist, fine. Some kids want to be a writer, fine. There's great jobs in all those. In my district, if you want your kid to stay there and live in San Diego, in Carlsbad, they probably should get involved in biocom or solar or get in some sort of transportation because those are the jobs that are there. If you're in Bakersfield, you probably want to be involved in the oil industry because it's, you know, it's a major producer of oil. If you're in Hollister, I assume you want to be in the agriculture area. So allow the local school districts to do what they know is right for the kids. And that's why local control funding was the whole plan pushed down. Let you guys do it. Because you can have an idea, but if you don't have the money, then it doesn't work. That's why you have your own money. In my district in Vista, when they gave the plus up, because they had like 85% of the kids free reduced lunches, probably about 85, 90% Latino. When they got all the money, the superintendent, which Vista Unified, went to his board and said, we got this money to increase the education experience of our kids. That's where the money should go. Should not go to wages. The CTA came back and said, no, we want to increase wages for all the teachers with the money. His board said, no, we're going to stay with the plan to increase the classrooms and opportunity for kids. He was laying out this very intricate design for every child at every grade to be successful. That school district is one of the lowest performing school districts in my 76th Assembly District of Carlsbad, Encinitas, Vista, and Oceanside. It's now #1. I asked him, I said, who did all the planning? He said, all the teachers. The teachers? He goes, yeah. He goes, it was the weirdest thing in the world. He said, you go over here, there's these teachers that have great ideas, and if I could give me this computer or that program or that book or that experience or let me do this, or I can team teach with this teacher, we can do this for our kids. And they would say, yeah, so he had the money, he did all of that, their plan, teacher's plan. And he said, then I'd walk out of the room and I'd be with the teachers union, and the teacher union said, we want more wages. And he goes, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to put the money with the kids in the classroom. And they'd scream and yell. So they've been at impasse now for over 2 years. Can't come to agreement. But over here, the teachers that supposedly the CTA is fighting for are happy as hell because their kids are learning. Teachers aren't the problem. It's the union side of it, not the teachers. But you need a school board to back you up. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what are your views on immigration, especially anchor babies?
I didn't mean to do that on purpose. I've been very vocal on immigration, so I didn't mean to do that. In 2012, when I got elected, I'm telling you this because show I'm not new to the issue. I've been up to the assembly for all of a week, and there was a rally for immigration reform. So I saw it and I thought, I want to go listen to it. So I went out there, they had the LA Times and everybody exactly and everything, doing immigration. And so they did the, the Latino caucus does their thing, Luis Alejo's leading, they do their thing, and everything, blah, blah, blah. All these different, the Black Caucus, the LGBT caucus, the Women's Caucus, everybody's caucus is talking about immigration. And I'm sitting there not being able to talk, and one of the LA Times people goes, "We're tired of hearing all you guys talk. I want to hear from the new Republican Latino who got elected. What do you think about immigration?" I got him and said, "I'm all for it." It does not escape me in Camp Pendleton when I see all the hyphenated names, young women and men who are serving in our services who are not citizens. Why would they do that?
Citizenship.
Because they know it's a great country and God will do anything to be a part of it. I said, we need to look at that. So what I have developed and I come through, there's three things. Very simple, three little things. Citizenship needs to be earned. You cannot put anybody in front of the line. There's no amnesty. The issue, if you want to be a citizen, go through the process. I have gone to 10, 20 different citizenship ceremonies since I've been an assembly member, and seeing those people come across after they become citizens, and they're from all over, from Africa, Europe, Australia, Asia, they're from everywhere. You never saw such a happy little group of people that finally citizens. And if you probably ask them about the Constitution, they know more about that than the average citizen. So, don't change that. That's important, number one. Number two, the way the world's going right now, you need to have your borders secure. There's terrorism going on there. You need to know who the hell's here. And so borders have to be secure. Borders are one of the components. I remember when I was a young kid, probably 5th grade, when they defined what is a country, certain thing, it's a landmass. It has borders, and generally there's a single language that everybody can communicate. That's how they define a country. Italian, French, United States, same thing, those components. Borders are important. And the third thing is, who's ever here who's not a citizen, I believe in a thing called residency. What's residency? When I was in Japan, I had a little residency card. It said I was not a Japanese citizen. It was a driver's license, it wasn't like the Japanese, it said big USA on it. But they knew I was there. And I had to pay I had to know the rules. I had to get a driver's license, I had to pass the driver's license in Japanese to read the signs. And I had to sit from miles to kilometers. My wife failed the test a few times because she didn't know that portion of her deal. I always tease her about that so I can say it publicly. I'm married. So I assume you're taping me, right? Yeah, I'm married. So that's a component of it, but residency is recognizing who's here. And I use my brother-in-law as an example. He's been here, married to my sister for 30 years. He doesn't want to be an American citizen. He goes to Mexico 4 months a year. He's just here because he's married to my sister. So residency is recognizing who's here and part of your time. You let them pay taxes and do all the other stuff. The idea you're going to self-deport 15 million people is crazy. But residency would give you the ability to know who's here. And why do you want to know that? Back to my second statement. This is an unsafe world, and we need to know who's here so we make sure we're a safe world. That answer your question?
What's your thoughts on sanctuary cities?
Sanctuary cities, I'm against them. Tom Del Bacar wrote a letter today, said I wasn't for it, that's wrong. What I had said was that the issue in San Francisco clearly showed a failing in the police department. There's also to be a recognition that in the drug cartels, that is not something that's dealt with by a city. Having been a council member for 2 terms in Oceanside. Oceanside is just south of Pendleton. Oceanside is a kickoff point for drugs to go up to LA and San Bernardino. Oceanside is a hangout for the cartels. And when we took them on, we used federal resources, we used state resources, we used county resources, and we used all the police departments in the area. And they would go at one time, 200-300 of these police officers' forces, and they'd break down every door where they knew these guys were, from Escondido to Oceanside down to Miramar, and clean them all up. And they'd gather 100 and some of them, and they were thugs. Now, another little story about these guys.
Obama's let them out now, huh?
These are not nice people. These are the people, when I was a council member in my church at St. Mary Star of the Sea, the leadership came to me and said, Rocky, we're going to have a meeting at night with the priest, but really it's a opportunity for the police to meet with the Latino community, because all the Latinos, there's a barrio called Crown Heights in the east side. Those 2 barrios, they would go to our church. And so that's where the gang members were hanging out. And the gang members were raping the women, beating up the kids, running drugs, raving drugs, and these people were afraid to come out to talk to the police because they're afraid to be deported. So they met at the church, and the police were in the back taking all the names and information to go get them. We get excited about when we see television shows of women and children being raped and killed in Syria. That same stuff's happening in the barrios in California by the same sort of thugs. I don't care if you're a thug from ISIS or you're a thug from the drug cartel in Central South America running drugs up. These people are not nice people. And that's where public policy comes into helping them stop the drugs and protecting people. And I will always default about helping a child and a woman. That's how my DNA is. That's why I fall on that issue of working with the police. And I think the police got convoluted to that whole deal with sanctuary cities. Yes?
I think I know the answer to this question, but what's your stance on the VA?
On who?
On the VA?
VA is broken. Actually, I'm going to talk about it tomorrow at length. I got a plan that I think we need to change. Without stealing a lot of the thunder for tomorrow, basically, it's a structural issue. Any other question? Before I go over here? Okay. Yes, sir.
I had a question, maybe it's clarity on this residence thing about someone who's undocumented. So are you saying that you would allow them to stay into the country without penalty so long as they register?
Pretty much, yeah. And let me tell you why. A lot of them have kids. As I talked to the Republicans, I said, why we're a party of family? I mean, we put family values right in front. Why would I support a program which would separate a mother, child from their kids? You know, sometimes you just need to recognize you got a problem. What's the easiest way to solve it so that we can go forward as a country? Did everybody follow the issue of China changing their birth rates? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Why did they do that?
They ran out of kids.
kids.
The whole people, not
One of the, in the same way Japan, how they're going. I was listening to another report. One of the reasons the United States is predicted to be not just a world power here economically, but in the future, is because we still have a younger population that's growing. And it's not growing from us here. Majority of us have what, 2 kids? 1 or 2 kids? And if you have 2 kids, then you're not growing it. So 3 kids a little bit, but generally you have to, then things happen. So new immigrants coming to the country is actually a positive thing for society. Yes.
Does that card come with the right to vote?
No. Citizenship is citizenship. Remember I said you got to be a citizen, you got to go through the process.
What are those 3 points, Robin?
Citizenship should not be changed. It's important that the current method we have is maintained. There's no amnesty, there's no front of the line, there's no whatever. If you want to be a citizen, go through the process. Take the classes, get involved, do it. And the reason is because there's a lot of value from that. Second thing is secure the borders. Because we need to know who's here because it's an unsafe world right now. This terrorism thing isn't going to go away next week or 10 years from now. It's going to be around for a while. So we need to know who's here. We need to have a better security system. And the third thing is residency, because then that takes people out of the shadows and you know what's going to happen. Yes?
Here's what I think about.
Okay.
The state of California has already made it so that if you're under 18, you basically get free medical care. And now they're looking at giving it to any undocumented worker. And when you couple that with them allowing them to have licenses, for instance, what's happening is what my mom used to say, you give them an inch and they take a foot. We are a deep blue state. And the problem is that when you allow this leniency to occur, then you just create more deep blue. And it makes it tough for the Republican Party. It makes it tough for, when I get up in the morning, I have a cup of coffee and I read the newspapers. I read the San Jose Mercury News. I like to call it the murky news. And the reason I call it the murky news is because it goes out to about 1 million people, digital and on paper. And it's a liberal rag. It is a tool for the liberal left. It's never going to paint anything nice about you, right? It's not. Probably, if it does, it's going to talk about the Democrat Party more than it is about the Republican Party. So here we are, in a way, by allowing this residency concept, we're not making it a red state. I think we're encouraging more blue. It's already an uphill battle. So that's my concern is, yeah, I know Anthony Cannella said, oh yeah, we're going to issue licenses to keep them out of the shadows, and that's that word. But I'll guarantee you that what will happen is that they'll find a way to say, oops, I should have registered that person, not as a person to vote, but they registered to vote. Okay? But they got past the system because the license plate, yeah, I know it's not supposed to. That's what's going to happen. And what does that do? It adds more blue people, right? More Democrats. And that changes the way the Electoral College is set up because it's done by representation. So now what you're doing is you're adding more people in the Electoral College who are going to make it more of a challenge for the United States for the red. And that's what I think about it. I think if you allow something
so
like
I want
that.
to restate 2 things so I clarify and answer your question. Your statement is that if we allow residency for, let's pick a race, Hispanics, residency, then they're going to be blue.
Yes, I
Okay,
think most of the time they will.
And your 7th statement is that we're giving medical care to undocumented.
Yes.
We're not. That vote didn't go through, it failed. So, just.
Under 18 it is.
Yeah,
It's already under 18.
Under 18 it is, but for adults not. The reason under 18 it was because it was the recognition that California Constitution already ensures that all children under the age of 18 here will be educated, regardless of that, it's part of the Constitution. So if we as a society are going to invest in people to be educated, then we ought to make sure that they're gonna be healthy enough to get a job when they get out of there, like dental and eyesight and things like that. And generally, you look at younger kids, it's not a significant hit anyway. So that's why we did that. But as far as olders, they don't get health care. That's a misnomer. That bill didn't pass. Now, the argument, the bigger argument we made was the fact that if we allow Latinos to be residents, then they're going to turn blue. Well, they don't vote. They're not citizens. To vote, you got to be a citizen. So that doesn't happen. But the other point is, I always talk to Republicans more. There's this whole issue about, different more people to vote and what you're going to be doing. What's the fastest growing group right now, every year, in registering? What's the fastest growing voting bloc? United States. No party preference. Fastest growing bloc. Fastest growing bloc. And I've been talking to a lot of college kids lately, and I'll go out to ask you, how many of you guys going to vote? About 25% of the hands go up. Well, why are you voting? What do you think? I'm voting because I care about the environment. I'm voting because the college debt. I'm voting because I want to have marijuana. That's pretty where they're focused at. They're not thinking about infrastructure or any of that other stuff. That's how their life is. And as I always tell the Republicans, I said, we are in the business of winning races. The leadership of the Republican Party, Assembly and the Senate, that's what our job is to win races. And our job is to hopefully make lives better for people. And we have this whole group of millennials that we're not resonating with. Because quite frankly, they don't care who people marry. They don't have a thing about gay people. They don't care. I want to ask you, but I'm just saying, they don't care. And so, if we're not talking to them at their level, what percent of the millennials join the military? If you ask somebody in World War II and Vietnam or Korea, your numbers are 50 to high 30% join the military. Today, millennials, 1%. 1%. So it's a different group out there. And so if we don't communicate to them on what's not that we're getting rid of our values, but articulating how our values help their lives, then they're not going to vote for us. And so I don't see residency having an impact on citizenship. Now, if you want to talk about Latinos, I can tell you why we're losing Latinos. It's very easy. I've been talking to them for 4 years on this. I did a focus group called the Scoochas. I went around the state and just met with Latinos all over the state. Little small groups, 9 or 10 in a little room, and asked them what do they think. And if you ask them in Fresno, where I was meeting with them, what was their number one issue? Latino community. Water. Water. They don't give it water. If you ask the Latino community in Orange County or LA or Riverside, what's your issue, Latino community? Education and public safety because of the gangs. If Republicans walk in and say, Second Amendment, no taxes, small and efficient government, what do they do to the Latino community in LA when you say that? And they just glaze over, shut down. If you walk in and say, you know what, I care about your kids being educated, let me tell you how charter schools work, let me show you about the Vergara lawsuit that the Democrats support, to ensure that your children will never graduate from school and will have no opportunity. 50% of Latino children in LA don't even graduate from high school. No graduation, no future. Talk to them about that, they care. Talk to them about public safety, they care. So Republicans have got to go into what Latinos are and talk to them about what they care about. It's called politics. It is actually our party, so it's a good thing. They will vote Republican if you talk to them on things they care about. But you got to listen to them. Yes, sir?
What is your stance on, and my premise to this is choice. It's religious freedom. And the reason why I say choice is because whether you're of a faith or not, if you don't protect people's right of conscience, which is a big part of what religious freedom stands for, then you're basically taking away their human ability to question where you spend on things, and you be able to think about that.
That's a basic, that's our Constitution. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Those are, there's no religious, you don't have to have a religious element to run. I mean, sure.
And the reason why I ask that is just because it's ultimately now, any laws that are created limit that voice, which you see in schools, you see it, you can't pray in public, all this, it's a false narrative when they try to say, well, you can't pray because you're influencing others.
Well, you can't pray in public. I think that would be crazy. I joked around, somebody said, in the Marine Corps, every battalion formation I'd have the chaplain come up and say a prayer. I knew a lot of the kids weren't military, but I looked at it this way. The government gave me a chaplain. You got to roll, get up and say a prayer. If you don't want to hear it, shut up. You're going to have it done. But that's what he's there for. I can't tell you how many kids afterwards, Marines say, I never ever prayed. Why did you do that, sir? It's scary. If there was anything you want to say you could fix to make this country better here, the family. The family. 50% of the children, I think it's 54% of the children are being raised in single-parent homes. Think about that. It's terrible. Guys have no responsibility leaving letting these boys out there. Crazy. I mean, how many times, I don't know about you guys, I know my father jacked my head up a few times. I mean, that was part of the, hey, Dad's coming home, I'm getting beat. I don't know, I did something wrong, I'm sure I did. But the whole family thing was very strong. You don't do that. When I was a principal of a school, I talked to kids. I remember taking them to dinner one time. I had this thing I took them to dinner. It was on domestic violence. They were supposed to see a class on domestic violence. I took 8 kids, 8 boys, and I sat them at a table. And they had a water glass, a fork, a knife, a couple of forks, knife and spoon. And they also looked at it. I'm sitting down looking at them and I said, you guys don't know what to do, because they had a ice wedge salad there, lettuce. And they looked at it and I said, well, how do you think you eat this? And one of the older kids grabbed his hand and put it in his mouth. I said, nope, stop. That's not how you eat here. This is not McDonald's. This is called a fork. This is called a knife. You cut it, you eat it. We had to have a class. And then I was talking to my teachers about it, and they said, these kids they don't eat with their family at one time at a table. They eat pizza and hamburger and they're watching TV. They don't sit at a table and eat with a fork and a knife and a napkin. That's going to change something. I can see people moving around, they're ready to kill it, so I just want to end it this way, and I can talk to you guys anything you want to after, but I'll be out here. I just want to end it with this. This is a political system, the United States Senate. There's 28% Republican, 40-some percent, 41, 42% Democrat. The rest have declined to stay. A lot of people think, I'm going to take the hard line, I'm going to stand, far right, that's what I'm going to do, that's what I believe. We will lose. We will lose. Some people say, it's going to be a lot of money. You had women spend, $40 million, got 44% of the vote. Carly Farina's only talking about 10 or 20 million, she got another, 40%, 42% of the vote. I think she got 45, 46, a little higher, but didn't make it. It's not money that wins a race. And it's not wrapping yourself a flag and marching with the cross. That's not going to win the race either. You're going to win a race by being positive, with opportunities, relating with people that you understand, you're listening to them, and challenging them and giving them solutions, and how we're going to get there. That's how you win the race. I'm going to pull the Republicans to the primary. I'll pull the declined states, because every time I ran, the declined states rolled for me. I'll pull, there's 2 million veterans in this state. I'm the only veteran in the entire 18 people running. My ballot statement's going to say Marine Colonel. And the other thing is, there's Latinos. And it's the fastest growing block. And it's not just pulling for this, but it's going to help all the down ticket items. So one time, you will have a Republican assembly member here. You'll have a Republican supervisor. If Republicans start leading in a positive message. That's what I have. Everybody who's running in the Republican deal doesn't have that ability that I just did. They're not a veteran, they're not a Latino, they don't have a voting record, and they're not president. think about it. I need your support. If you can so buy, my guys got envelopes, help me out. I need money too. So, God bless you.